In this video, I'm going to share with you my 3 biggest sporting lessons from the past 12 months. 2021 has been an incredibly abnormal year for sport, with all the restrictions surrounding the coronavirus pandemic, making things especially difficult for recreational athletes in particular. However, despite this, it has been my most successful year yet in sport, and hence I wanted to share with you what made it so. These 3 things have been paramount to my successes this year, where they have enabled me to significantly push beyond what I was capable of, when in previous years I've plateaued. And so, if you don't get these things right, you may also find yourself stagnating in your progress. However, implement these takeaways and you may reach new levels of performance with less effort. To demonstrate how well these ideas have served me, let me tell you my story. In 2018, I broke my personal bests for the 50 and 100 metres freestyle at the Swim England Masters Nationals Short Course Championships. At the same event in 2019, despite having the freedom to train all year round, I only managed to improve on my 50 metre time. However, after not being able to compete in 2020 and 7 months out of the water at the start of 2021, this time around I achieved 7 personal bests in 7 races. All on 4 months of training and starting from a lower fitness level than when the pandemic began. So, what are these key takeaways, you ask? Well, takeaway number 1 is that consistency is key. Be it with training or nutrition, I've noticed that I've made the most progress this year when I've stuck to practicing the few key things day in, day out. On the other hand, stagnation came when I tried to push down too hard on the throttle. Whenever I did a monster workout or undertook a massive caloric deficit, I exhausted myself, which meant that I couldn't train to the required standard on the days following that. And as a result, I lost out on the opportunity to make progress on those days and sometimes even regressed. So, in 2022, make sure that you focus on doing the key things consistently. Takeaway number 2 is that weight loss isn't about maximising your caloric deficit in times of strength, rather limiting the damage in times of weakness. That means rather than focusing on starving yourself and running yourself into the ground, focus on reducing the frequency and intensity of the times when you overeat. Because it's so much easier to prevent a neutral day from becoming a bad day than it is to put a bad day right with a string of good days. So, in the new year, make sure that you don't sabotage all of your hard work. And to get on top of your nutrition in 2022, download a free copy of my 5-step guide to perfect your diet from the link in the description. Finally, takeaway number 3 is to train for your sport. When the pandemic restrictions meant that I couldn't swim for 7 months, despite all of the hard work I put into keeping my fitness and strength up, when I got back into the pool, I had regressed significantly. I remember that first attempt at a 100 metres freestyle when I got back in the pool. I swam it 7 seconds slower than I would normally have done in training, which, for a race that lasts just over a minute for me, was pretty awful. But it taught me that when training for a sport, it is important to replicate what you do in competition. Therefore, your final focal point for 2022 is to make your training as specific to your goal as possible. Thank you for watching. I've been David Westcough, and if you're watching this on YouTube, click here to subscribe to my channel to make sure that you don't miss out on any of my future videos. And click here for another video to help you take your sporting performance to the next level. I'll see you in the next video.